This is Peter's call to action. We've been tracing him for quite a while. This is his rousing speech. This was his moment. In a little burst here, 3 to 4 minutes long of Peter's little speech he gives, we're suddenly reminded of who we are and what reality really is. For Peter, this is the moment that we begin, though, to have serious problems. But it's a great day of great hope that's coming. Did you notice that Peter didn't say that the last time was coming? He said that the last time is being revealed. The day of salvation, the day of your souls, is something not in the great future, but it's something that's already true and is already currently being revealed. You remember last week, in the present moments. All the difference in the world of saying something is in the future, that it hasn't happened yet, but that day will come, versus saying something is already true. You just can't see it yet. It's not that something that will be coming, it's something that's already here, and it's slowly being shown to us. There's a pastor, the best image of this I've ever seen in my whole life. Anybody have pictures on their fridge? Yeah? We're alive? Cool. I remember my grandmother, next to her couch seat at her house, she had a little round table, and on it she had pictures that she would change out for school pictures every single year that she would get them. And I don't know, I have 6 older siblings, and we're all married, and all of us have children. So, I wasn't married yet, but at the time, she would have like 30 little tiny framed photographs of every person that is involved in the family sitting there, and you would be able to grab them and open them up, and you would go backwards in time. You would literally she never took photos out. You would this is me in 3rd grade, 2nd grade, 1st grade, blah, blah, blah. And then I didn't have any because I was the 7th child and they didn't take pictures of me as a kid. Except for preschool, I've told you this, my mom sent a picture of my brother Eric to preschool for me when I had to take a picture of me when I was a child because there just weren't any, and Eric and I looked close enough alike that it passed. But this is this image that God has this, he says a refrigerator in which there are pictures of you. There's one of you from when you first met, and there's one from the very end of your existence. And you're somewhere in the middle. You with me? It'd be like my grandmother had my birth picture, but a picture of me at my funeral. And I'm somewhere in the middle. But he's got the image in his mind of what you will look like when you fully become who you were meant to be. He's got that last image of you where you fully become it on that fridge. You're not there yet, but you're on your way to becoming that person. The whole journey that we call salvation, again, the series of multiple steps, is this long journey, not a moment in time. We don't get to say, I remember sitting in the parking lot of a Cracker Barrel, and that is when I was saved by Jesus. It's not just a moment, but this long journey. But it means that we change. Each step is a give and take. Each step is a new piece of us revealed, becoming the thing that God has pinned on the fridge for who we are at the end. I'm not going to say that the day I became a Christian is the last day I ever changed. I hope that's not true. If that's true, I would be very different than I am now. More change has to happen as we continue on this journey. The deconstruction of old things and the creation of these new principles. What Peter says in his rousing speech here, and what he has demonstrated in his whole journey, is that every single person is going to be moved closer to the day when salvation is fully revealed. But it's a continuous journey. The day that you become the picture on God's fridge, the day that the last photograph on my grandmother's nightstand is finally revealed to us. We're getting there. And part of that journey, if you catch it in what Peter said, part of that journey is trials. Peter says these things come that so the genuineness of our faith, the proven character of our faith, might be both revealed and developed. Basically, Peter's saying God is adding a little bit more weight to the bar that you're lifting, and you're going through different situations that we would call trouble. The stuff you hate. And your tendency, if you're like me, is to look at those situations and start blaming things for when we have trouble. We can blame people, we can blame systems, we can talk about grave injustices. By nature, for us, when something goes wrong, there has to be a culprit. Something has to be responsible for this. Somebody has to make the whole thing go. And the question is, why does there have to be a culprit? Peter saying, why can't we just say, God uses people and systems and rumors and injustices and quotas and things that we don't like, but they're used, these things that drive people crazy, in order to push and develop character of faith. Boy, that's not fun to say, is it? You're telling me that God did those things. This is a good thing. Doesn't feel like it. Sounds scary when you utter it out loud. I'll say it again. Maybe God uses these things, and that's a good thing, even if it doesn't feel like it. You all right? You okay? Is that all right? God sometimes, you with me? Breathe in. Everyone calm, breathe in. The moment, though, that we can make a change, the moment that we no longer talk about all the stuff that's happening to us, and we start talking about what's happening in us, is a focus shift. The moment we stop thinking all the stuff that's happening to us, and we start thinking about the things that are happening in us, is a shifting focus. The problem, then, in that is not your adversary. The problem, when you shift that focus to what's happening in me, becomes your ego. And ego isn't pride. Pride is a symptom of an unconverted ego. But ego is the problem. And sometimes it makes you proud, and sometimes it makes you cynical, and sometimes it makes you mean. For me, it makes me incapable of losing an argument. That's not my pride, that's my ego. If you thought last week was hard, this next one is impossible. This is a game that I play. Anyone know the name of that game? For bonus brownie points, you get a king-size candy bar of your choice if you can tell me what video game that is. It's the best video game made recently. Anyone? No. Darn. That's top-down. If you know. It looks like Final Fantasy, doesn't it? It's called Expedition 33. It's made by a bunch of French developers. They had a passion project to create this game. It's gorgeous, it's beautiful, it's going to win Game of the Year and Game of the Millennium. It is fantastically beautiful, and I love video games, and I'm pretty good at them, and I'm playing, and I'm doing a great job. And I was overconfident in my own abilities playing this. I had beaten the thing, and it's like, there are some challenges to do, to go try. And I said, I'm going to go do that. So this boss there is called Simon. It's like the hardest boss in the entire game, and I went in there pretty overconfident. I wish I had a video of me playing it the first time. I had just been whatever, and I went in and I was like, all right, let's do this. And pretty much exactly what happened to her happened to me. He knocked every one of my party out, vanished them from the cabinet, or the canvas, and I sat there with my jaw open going, I literally overestimated my abilities completely. My ego lets me think I'm capable of some things that I'm not. And it wasn't that it was really the game's fault. Simon's pretty unfair. I remember going down and telling Ashley, this boss is not beatable. The game is literally not fair. He gets to move 50 times in a row, and if you die, it's permanent. You don't go back from it. And she was like, wow, and then kept reading her book, right? But that's my ego. I couldn't just say, boy, maybe there's something that it was the game's fault. I found my adversary. The game was developed poorly. When you look at a photo or a group photo and you're in it, who do you look at first? Yeah, yourself, right? Yeah. Have you ever looked at a group photo and looked at everyone and oh yeah, well, man. Oh, okay, yeah, okay. I've looked at everyone and now I'll make sure that I look good in this photo. Everybody looks really good. I look like a dork in it though, but you know what? We'll use this picture. I have, again, big family. I remember taking wedding photos, and I at one point realized that we were never going to get everybody to smile and look good at the same time. There's 30 of us, and a lot of them are children. So you just have to make sacrifices. You go, in this photo, Clark is going to have his eyes closed. Next time we'll make sure Isaiah is in it, But you look for yourself. You want to make sure you look good in it. When have you ever had an argument in your head? Like you like, I know we're going to argue about it. I'm going to play the argument out in my head. When have you lost that argument in your head? Like you've argued with yourself and lost. Like, we don't do that. That's ego. When you draw a picture in your mind of taking the last shot in a basketball game. I remember as a kid I'd hang a little basketball hoop on a door, and I would be like, 3 seconds, 2 seconds, 1, swoosh! You ever not make the last shot in your imagination? No? You do what you did. If it misses, you go, oh, there's suddenly 2 more seconds on the clock, and he puts it back up. Like, you always have to win. That's ego. If you imagine your awards are being handed out for the most prestigious and accomplished and successful person ever, you would give the award to yourself. Ego is this narrative you create about yourself. It's the story you tell yourself about yourself. And it thrives in separation. It has to distinguish itself from other things and people in the room. And it does this by creating new superiority and extraordinary things it could possibly do. Ego is the part of you that feels super particular and peculiar and a little distinct. It's the thing that makes you so special and unique and amazing. It's the part of you that is entitled. Other people might deserve this, but I really do. I really do deserve this. And there will come a day when God will tell your ego truth to convert it. The question is, do we actually have the nerve to listen when our ego is challenged? For Peter, this happens in Matthew 26. I'm going to just tell the story, but if you want to kind of follow along with it, it's Matthew 26, and it's right after Jesus' arrest. This is where this happens for Peter. Matthew says, when evening comes, Jesus gathers his disciples for a meal. This is the Passover meal. It's the symbol of God's loyalty. And right in the middle of this symbol of loyalty, Jesus looks at all these people gathered with him and he says, one of you is going to betray me. And the room was that quiet. One by one, the disciples go around the room and basically say, it's not me. It's not me, obviously. And it's partially because they probably don't think it's them. And the other part, because they want Jesus to exonerate them. It's not me. Oh, no, Nathaniel. Of course it's not you, Nathaniel. You're Nathaniel. Me? No, Philip, it's not you. Me? In the moment where Jesus has said, one of you will betray me, they have the need to create in their mind the narrative that says, other people would do it, but not me. That's separation. That's ego. Jesus says, nope. It's the one who puts his hand in the bowl with mine. Someone who shares a meal with me. And then Judas says, surely you don't mean me. That's verse 25. Just 10 verses earlier in 15. Judas had already gone out and made the deal for 30 pieces of silver. He knows full well that he is the one who betrayed him. But now, looking at Jesus, he says, I would never do that. Judas is pretending to not even know something about himself that he knows. It's like, he knows. He thinks Jesus doesn't know. And then Jesus says, you're the one that said it. And right at that moment, Jesus starts to break the bread and hand out the cup. And he turns to his disciples and he says, in fact, every one of you will walk away from me. And then our favorite disciple we've been following, who I often say again, walks with his foot in his mouth to begin with, stands up and says, "Oh no, other people will do this, but not me, not Peter." Do you see it? He's doing the narrative again. And he says, "Oh, it's human nature to walk away from you, Jesus, but really deep down, I'm not actually human." You hear the narrative in there? He's creating this separation between himself and the rest of the disciples. None of them doubt this is going to happen, but they doubt it will be them. That's ego. Jesus looks at Peter and he says, "As a matter of fact, Peter, it will be you." 3 times. 3 times before the rooster even crows once. But Peter says, "Absolutely not. I would die for you." And the other disciples like exactly what he said. Ditto. Have you ever overestimated yourself? Drawn the line of separation between yourself, your character, and everybody else's? Your behavior and someone else's? Your intelligence and someone else's? It's what makes you peculiar and particular. There's somewhat a joke, but every joke has a smidgen of truth in it. Don't ever ask your spouse what they think you could change as a habit or take on as a new good habit, or a mistake you made that it would be nice to revisit, because it'll be crickets for a few seconds and you'll think, "See, I am perfect. I've stumped him." But then the college ruled notebook comes out with like multiple pages of things that they've been, "Hey, I don't like it when I swallow really loud. It's really strange." You're all laughing, but if you've been in a quiet enough room with me and you hear me drink something, you'd be like, "Are you dying?" I can't change that, but I'll be like, "Ash, what's something that annoys me or annoys you about me?" She goes, "You swallow so loud." And then the other pages all come out. And don't ever do that. It's a day of judgment right there in the living room. And every one of these situations that they would say to you would be absolutely true. But you can always find a way to deflect it. "That's not what I meant. I didn't mean that. Well, how was I supposed to whatever? You can't blame me for that. That's how I was." You got them all in your head ready to go. We transmit ourselves to other people not even aware of the impact we have half the time. We're not stupid. We're not deceptive. We're blind. We're blind to our own ego. This is this moment when Jesus says to Peter, listen. You are capable of doing things that would frighten you, Peter. Let me ask you, what does Jesus know about you that you don't know? Sounds like a trick question. Right? If I don't know it, how in the world would anyone else know it? Second part of that, how would he tell you that he knows something about you don't even know? And if he did, would you even believe it? Shoot the messenger. What would you say? That's not even true. How would you know that you would believe it? And if you believed it, what would you do about it? Most of us would say the old, "No, Jesus is wrong about me. You're right about everybody else when you say those things, but it doesn't apply to me. But you're definitely wrong about me." But when that happens, is that the guards come to arrest Jesus after this Last Supper thing, and they arrest him, and Peter is there. And Matthew says, as soon as they arrest him, Peter draws out his sword and basically says, "Not on my watch," and slices the ear off of the high priest. And Jesus picks up the ear, puts it back on, and it heals and sticks back on the guy's head. And Jesus says, "Peter, Peter, put it away. Do you not think that in this moment, if I wanted, I could call out to my Father, and he would give me 12 legions of angels?" In the Roman army, between 5,000 and 6,000 soldiers. 5,000 and 6,000 soldiers would be a legion. So if I translate this for us to hear properly, he would say, if I wanted to, do you not think I could call down 72,000 angels to protect me? And remember, Peter, one wiped out the firstborn of Egypt. You don't think I could call down 70,000 more? And they wouldn't do what I wanted? This is how it has to go, Peter. And then Peter watches as they lead Jesus away in chains, and he starts to have a moment of conversion. He's starting to replay the videos in his head. What did I just do, and what is happening right now? So Peter follows at a distance, replaying this whole night in his head, and he goes for a little while into the courtyard, and while he's in this courtyard, there's a fire in the middle and some soldiers there waiting around it, and Peter stands by the fire, and one of the girls in this area looks to Peter and says, hey, wait a minute. You look like the one that's with him, that's with this Jesus fellow. And Peter says, no, I don't know what you're talking about. And one of the other people around the fire looks at him and he says, no, I saw you with him. And Peter says, no, absolutely not. I don't even know this man you speak of. And he takes a few steps away from the fire to go be by himself, but the group now has started to form a tiny little mob, and one of them says, wait a minute, you are one of them. Your accent gives you away. And by this time, Peter says in the strongest of terms, he says, I swear to God, I have never heard of this man. We don't know exactly why Peter is doing this. Part of me says he's afraid. Part of me says he's thinking, I don't want what's happening to him to happen to me. But a big part of me says that he's just flat disappointed. It's like he's just flat disappointed. The God that he believes in, that he believed he was following, doesn't get led away in chains. He conquers things. He doesn't take beatings. But this one here, taking a beating, I can't possibly understand this. And when you say, why can't he figure that out? Why can't Peter in this moment realize what's going on? Why can't he figure this out? We don't know it either. This is a massive shift in Peter's mind. To take away years of us growing up and hearing these stories and understanding the end result of this, and put yourself in this courtyard with the fire in the middle. He's hearing for the very first time that the earth is not the center of the universe. He's hearing for the very first time that the earth is actually round and not flat. He's hearing for the first time. You with me? But there's no memory of this in the histories of it. So he's hearing for the very first time there is a God who can get bound in chains and killed by a bunch of Romans and religious people. And I think that's why what he's denying is this caricature. He's saying, Jesus, I know him, but I don't know him. He's hurt. Do you feel it? The world that he thought he knew has crumbled around. There's a deconstruction happening right now, and he doesn't even know what's ahead of him. But the moment that he says it, the rooster crows. And all of this night comes crashing back into his mind. The separation, the ego, it just went. And now it's, I really am not better or different than anyone else I was with. Matthew tells us this. I love it. He says, Jesus from the window turns and looks at Peter in the courtyard and doesn't say anything. He just looks at him. And Peter sees him and he runs off into the night. We don't like confrontation. We don't like when people say hard things. It's not because we think that they're wrong. It's because they're probably right. And if they're right, what do I do about it? Because I feel like I'm all right. Everything you say is true, but now what? You sit there. It's Peter. If you're anywhere near this moment for Peter, if you've ever heard things from God lately and they're hard, listen. You're in the middle of a conversion. You don't know it. It feels like you're losing something. If I do that, if I change this belief, if I actually do that, something will be born differently in you. 3 days later, Jesus comes out of the grave, and he's looking for Peter. According to Mark, on Easter morning, when the women come from the tomb, they find the stone rolled away, the body's gone. They turn, and they suddenly, in front of them is an angel, and the angel says, "He's not here, he is risen. Now go tell his disciples, oh, and by the way, tell Peter." Go tell his disciples and Peter that he's going to go ahead of you into Galilee. And you'll see him there just like he said. Do you hear it? He's looking for Peter on resurrection morning. Go and tell the disciples, and make sure you tell Peter. But not so that he can just I can hang it in his face. Not just so I can dunk on him, right? So I can bring him back. So one morning, Peter is out by the lake with some friends, and they're fishing, and they haven't caught anything all night, and Jesus walks to the shoreline, and he looks out and he calls to the disciples. He says, "Hey, cast your nets to the other side of the boat." He's like 100 yards away, shouting a football field distance away. You can't see the fish from there. But he says, "Hey, toss them to the other side and see what happens." And so Peter tosses the net to the other side. And he feels this familiar drag, and he hauls up 153 fish in the net. And the disciples look to the shore, and Peter looks and he dives overboard to swim to the shore. But you start swimming towards Jesus, and when you get to the shore, he notices Jesus has started a fire. He's quick. Jesus is in the Boy Scouts, apparently. He's recreating the scene. He's asking Peter to step back into this moment. He gets up next to Peter. Peter gets up next to Jesus, and Jesus has a fish roasting over the fire. And he says, "Hey, Peter, why don't you take some of your fish and put it next to mine?" He doesn't need the fish. There's already a fish cooking. But what he's saying is, why don't you take something of what you're doing and put it next to what I'm doing? And they cook them and they start to eat. Nobody says a word. Everybody's thinking the same thing. They're all thinking it. They're sitting there going, what's he going to say to Peter? Right? You with me? He's got him. What's he going to say to him? Is he going to go, "Hey, Peter, I told you"? How do I know that you won't do this again to me, Peter? Could I possibly trust you? But that's not what he says. He says, "Peter, do you love me?" "Well, of course I do." "Then feed my sheep." A few more moments go by, and he says, "Peter, do you love me?" Is there an echo in here? "Of course I love you." "Then feed my sheep." A few more moments, one more time. "Peter, do you love me?" 3 for 3. For each denial, a confession. "Are you sure?" And he says, "Lord, you know all things. You know full well that I do." He says, "Feed my sheep." That's when it occurs to you that when you've had a moment in a courtyard around the fire, a dark night where Peter is lost and his ego is bruised and he doesn't know what's happening next, the moment when Jesus has called it out and told you something about yourself that you didn't even think was possible to be true, but it really was, in that moment, the only question that will save you is, do you love him? There's no promises. Do you hear it? There's not a promise from Jesus. There's no explanation of anything happening. There's just, like golf, you play it where it lies. Start there. Do you love him? If you don't, then there is no path forward. But if you do, day breaks and the journey continues. Do you love me? Feed my sheep. Let's pray.